was just past midnight in our quiet home in Tennessee. The house was cloaked in silence, the kind of stillness that settles deep into your bones. I was completely alone, naked actually, fresh out of the shower. My towel hung on a hook nearby, and my hair was still damp from the steam that had filled the bathroom moments before. I realized then, with a sudden jolt, that I had forgotten to lock the door that led from the hallway into the master bedroom. The soft creak of the door caught my attention. I turned around, and there he was, Philip, my granddaughter's boyfriend. He was 22, shirtless, standing there with his eyes wide and mouth slightly parted. There was something in his gaze, a hunger that was undeniable. His eyes slowly traced down my body like he was drinking me in. I froze. I expected him to look away, to apologize, or at least acknowledge his intrusion and leave. But he didn't. Instead, he held my gaze with an intensity that felt like heat rising from firewood in a cold room. I should have covered myself. I should have called out, told him to leave. But I didn't. I just stood there, exposed, breathing heavier than I ever had, my heart pounding like it might leap from my chest. That night, something shifted between us. Something I hadn't expected. Something I had buried deep within myself for years, but that suddenly stirred awake. What unfolded after that moment has haunted me ever since, thrilling and terrifying me in equal measure. But the truth is, the story began long before that door ever creaked open. Before I go any further, I want to say thank you to everyone watching. This, my subscribers, your support, your comments, and your engagement are the heartbeat of this channel. And to those new or returning, I hope you'll consider subscribing. It's your encouragement that keeps me sharing these raw, personal stories. Please like, comment, and share your thoughts below. I want to hear from you. Now, let me take you back to who we were before everything crossed that line. My name is Rhonda. I'm 63 years old, a retired school librarian, and I live alone in a modest 2-bedroom home just outside Nashville, Tennessee. My husband passed away 9 years ago. Since then, silence has been my closest companion. It's the kind of silence that seeps into every corner of your life, wrapping you up in its cold embrace. Then, my granddaughter Lily came to stay. She's 21, a college junior full of life and dreams. She moved in last spring because the rent near campus became too expensive. I was happy, really happy, to have some life back in the house. The quiet had become too much to bear. Soon after, Lily moved in. Philip started coming around on weekends. At first, he was just her boyfriend, a young man, tall, charming, always smiling. But over time, something changed. It started with glances, quick looks that lingered just a bit too long, comments and compliments that felt more personal than appropriate. He made me feel noticed again, seen in a way I hadn't been for a very long time. That scared me more than anything. I told myself it was harmless. After all, he was a young man trying to be nice to his girlfriend's grandmother. But when I caught him looking at me in ways no young man should look at a woman my age, something inside me cracked open. I began paying attention to how I presented myself when he was around. Maybe a touch more lipstick, a blouse that hugged a little tighter. Not obvious, but deliberate. I knew what I was doing, and I knew what he was thinking. Still, I never planned for anything to happen. Until that night. That night when I forgot to close the door, I thought maybe it would be the secret we kept locked away, buried in silence and shame. But the very next morning, I found a small folded note on my pillow. The handwriting was sharp and bold. It said, "I saw you. I liked what I saw." Those 4 words screamed louder than any conversation Philip had ever dared to have. I held that note for hours, feeling it burn into my skin like a brand. By noon, I had tucked it into my journal and locked it away, promising myself it meant nothing. but by evening, I was wearing the red silk robe again, the same one I'd worn the night the door had been left open. It was a Friday. Lily was gone for the weekend, attending a photography conference in Chattanooga. I knew Philip was still in town. I didn't expect him to come by, but he did. Around 9 p.m., he showed up saying he forgot his charger in Lily's room. He walked in like he owned the space. The air between us shifted immediately. The silence stretched tight and dangerous. I offered him a glass of wine, which he accepted, and we sat together in the living room pretending nothing was unusual. He watched me sip. I watched him breathe. My hand trembled slightly as I placed my glass down. "Did you get my note?" he asked, eyes locked on mine. I could barely speak, but I nodded. "You shouldn't have written that," I whispered. "But I did," he said, leaning closer. His fingers brushed my knee, and my skin lit up like a match-struck dry kindling. His hand stayed there, steady, confident, without hesitation. "You're beautiful, Rhonda," he said. "I've been trying not to think about you, but I do. All the time." I should have stopped him. I should have stood up and told him this was wrong. But instead, I looked into his young, hungry eyes and whispered a truth I had buried for years. "I've been lonely for a long time." Before the sentence could fully settle between us, his lips were on mine. Soft at first, like a question, then deepening with a hunger that took my breath away. His hands gripped my waist, pulling me close, like gravity itself had lost control. Felt every inch of his youth, the strength, the urgency, the raw desire. My robe slipped off my shoulder, and his lips traced the path down to my collarbone. I gasped, feeling my body betray my age, begging for something it had been denied for so long. He laid me down on the couch right there, the same couch where I used to read bedtime stories to Lily as a child. Shame and desire tangled inside me like snakes, twisting and turning in impossible ways. His mouth explored me as if he had dreamed of this moment, mapping it out in secret. And I let him. God help me, I let him. The sounds, the scent of wine, and sweat, the heat between us. I had never felt more alive or more wrong. He whispered things in my ear no 22-year-old should ever say to a woman my age. He touched me in places long forgotten by passion, and I responded like a woman starving for connection. But that moment didn't last. The next morning, as the sun poured through the blinds, I opened my eyes to see a shadow at the doorway. It was Lily. She had come back early. She saw everything. Her face was frozen. Her eyes are wide with disbelief. Philip sat up in panic, grabbing his jeans. I reached for the blanket, but it was too late. She turned without a word. Tears welled up in her eyes. The door slammed behind her. I could still hear it echoing long after it shut. I ran after her, but she was already in the car. The engine roared to life, and she peeled out of the driveway as if fleeing from a crime scene. And maybe she was. There I stood, barefoot in my robe, shame wrapping around me like a noose. My skin still smelled like him, my heart still racing. But the woman staring back at me in the mirror was a stranger, someone I didn't recognize. Philip came up behind me, buttoning his shirt like this was just another day, another mistake. I looked at him, and the thrill that once ignited inside me twisted into disgust. "You need to leave," I said. He blinked, hesitation flickering across his face. Then, without a word, he grabbed his keys and walked out. No apology. No regret. Just that same smirk he had when he first crossed the line. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands shaking, my mind flooded with memories of Lily. Her laughter, her trust, the way she curled up beside me on movie nights, calling me her safe place. Had shattered that with my own hands. 3 days passed before Lily returned. When she walked in, her eyes were swollen, her shoulders heavy, as if carrying the weight of the entire world. She didn't scream. She didn't yell. She just sat across from me at the kitchen table. "I thought you loved me," she said. "I do," I whispered. "I always will." "Then why him?" she asked, her voice breaking. I had no answer that could explain what I had done. I had fallen into something forbidden and dangerous. I had mistaken attention for affection and allowed my body to silence my conscience. In the end, I broke the I, one person who had never stopped believing in me. Lily moved out a week later. She never said goodbye. She just packed quietly while I watched from the hallway, unable to speak. I wanted to beg. I wanted to crawl on my knees and ask for forgiveness. But I knew it would only dig the hole deeper. Philip disappeared after that. He blocked her number, ghosted us both. He got what he wanted. A fleeting taste of danger, a moment of power, and then vanished. And me? I sit alone now. The house is quieter than ever. I replay that night over and over like a punishment. That door I forgot to close at midnight did more than let him in. It let something out. Something I can never put back. Loneliness is a heavy burden. It creeps in quietly, like fog rolling over a dark morning, convincing you that any touch is worth the cost. But some costs are too high. I lost my granddaughter. I lost myself. And all for one night of feeling alive. If you've listened this far, I want to know, what did this story make you feel? Would you have forgiven me if you were Lily? Or would you have walked away too? Please share your thoughts below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Your support keeps these real, raw stories alive. Until next time, guard your doors and guard your heart.